Bryce Young yesterday against the New Orleans Saints looked absolutely terrible. His first pass was an interception, and the whole entire afternoon, I was just asking myself, like, is Bryce Young really this bad? Because there's no way I can possibly be watching the same quarterback that carried Alabama the 2 years he was there right now with the Carolina Panthers. I refuse to believe that Bryce Young is this bad. And yes, I still have faith that Bryce Young can become a really good quarterback at the NFL level. And there's dog inside of Bryce Young. Okay, somewhere hidden inside of Bryce Young, the Alabama version of him is locked away. Dave Canales just has to find the key to be able to unlock it and get the best out of Bryce Young. You see, when Bryce was coming out of Alabama, I really thought that there was no way he was going to be a bust in the NFL. Despite the limitations that he has with his size, he's dominated at the high school level, the collegiate level, and please don't lecture me about it's the NFL, JT. There's a difference between playing in college football and playing in the NFL. I understand that. But there were things that Bryce Young did incredibly well at Alabama, such as having good pocket movement, great accuracy outside of the numbers and inside of the numbers, and a lot of things that made Bryce Young so special at Alabama, we haven't seen so far throughout his career with the Carolina Panthers. You can blame the dysfunctional ownership. You can blame the terrible coaching that he received in year one. But in his second season, having a new supporting cast, Deontay Johnson, some better running backs, you got a new head coach in Dave Canales that I think is pretty good. This was the same guy who was responsible for resurrecting Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield in back-to-back seasons. If you can resurrect the careers of those two QBs, you can do the same thing for Bryce Young. At this point, there has to be a serious conversation about Bryce Young and how the Panthers went about evaluating this dude coming out of Alabama, because for some reason, he's just not a good fit with this organization. And I just can't understand why. Because in the SEC, that's where the majority of college football's best players reside. The SEC has more players drafted in the NFL yearly than any other conference in college football. So it's not like Bryce Young was playing against scrubs. In the SEC championship, he torched the Georgia defense that had Jalen Carter and numerous other future NFL starters on that team. Okay? And the Alabama team that Bryce Young played with wasn't as good as what you typically see out of an Alabama team. For the people that don't watch college football like that and make it seem like Bryce Young was overrated when he was coming out of the draft really frustrate me, because if you really watched the 2 seasons that Bryce Young was the starter for Alabama, those years, Alabama wasn't that good. They only had 2 first-rounders that Bryce Young played with, that being Jahmyr Gibbs and Jamison Williams. Other than that, his offensive line wasn't good. The majority of the defenses that Nick Saban was throwing out there weren't as good as what they've been in the past. And when Bryce Young left for the draft, Nick Saban fired his entire coaching staff. He said that we were too Bryce Young dependent, and he changed his philosophy. That's how much Bryce Young meant to Alabama's football program at that time. And I just can't wrap my head around Bryce Young just being this bad as an NFL quarterback. You know, I've been evaluating and scouting players for over the last 5 to 6 years. And no player has surprised me more than Bryce Young with how disappointing he's been in the NFL up to this point of his career. And I'm not about to write him off just because he had a bad week 1 against New Orleans. Listen, in week one, there's a lot of weirdness that goes on. You got guys who are rusty because they saw limited action in the preseason, or they weren't able to get a lot of timing and chemistry built and down packed with the receivers and their offensive line during training camp in the preseason. And sometimes growth doesn't always take place during the offseason. Sometimes a player grows throughout the season. And I'm willing to give Bryce Young until the second week of December to finally come to the realization of what he is. Because after Thanksgiving is when the best teams play their best football and the best players also play their best ball as well. And it's too early into the year with the new head coach, a new supporting cast, just to say Bryce Young is a flat out bust. He's not good. So if you're coming on here expecting me to give up on Bryce Young, you got to keep waiting some more, because I'm a really patient person, because I understand that football is a game that is not about how you start, it's about how you finish. Jordan Love struggled for the majority of last season, but he played his best football the last 2 months of the year when it mattered the most. That's when you want to see your franchise quarterback start to solidify themselves as the future of your franchise. It's too early to come to an assumption of what Bryce Young is when there still is so much football to be played. Around week 13 or week 14 is when we are actually going to have a better understanding of if Bryce Young is a bust or if this dude actually has the capability to play the quarterback position at a high level for the Panthers franchise. I've been watching the Carolina Panthers for a lot of years. I'm not a fan of this team, but I might as well be with how much Panthers football I watch. And I'm going to be honest, I was really disappointed in how Bryce Young and the rest of this team played against the New Orleans Saints. I was excited for week 1 of this NFL season. And when I woke up Sunday morning, I was so excited to watch Bryce Young play, because I was optimistic that with Dave Canales and having Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, and the other new weapons that they gave him, that would be enough to help him improve. But we didn't see any improvement at all. If anything, he looked worse than what he did last year. But I still believe that Bryce Young has that dog inside of him, and the version of him that we saw at Alabama is locked inside of him somewhere, and Dave Canales just has to find the keys to be able to pop that lock and get Bryce Young playing at his highest level possible. So I'm not willing to write off Bryce Young yet. You know, there still is a lot of games to be played. Things aren't going to get any easier for Carolina. They got to play the LA Chargers in week 2. That could be another game where we see Bryce Young struggle, but progress doesn't always happen overnight. Okay, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for a quarterback to develop and improve in their second season. I'm not making any excuses for Bryce. All I'm saying is that I'm waiting to see more out of him this year under Dave Canales before I finally give you a verdict on if this dude is a bum and he was a wasted pick, or if there is something there with him. And from what I saw out of him at Alabama, I just can't give up on him too easy, man. The only time Alabama lost with Bryce Young as their starter was when he was off the field. He didn't have an opportunity to win the game because the opposing team didn't give him a chance to get the ball in his hands. That's how good he was. He arguably is the most talented quarterback that Nick Saban has ever had. I just can't ignore what I saw at Alabama, him playing at that high of a level, and just write him off this early. Like, there definitely is something inside of Bryce Young that has to be unlocked. Okay, I just can't accept what Bryce Young is right now, because I never would have thought he would be this bad in the NFL. And I'm pretty good when it comes to player evaluation and scouting. Go ahead and check my rap sheet. You know, I had Tank Dell and Zay Flowers as my top 2 receivers in last year's draft class. If I was the Patriots general manager right now, they would have a Super Bowl team at this moment. So I'm pretty confident that Dave Canales is going to be able to get the most out of Bryce Young. It's just going to take some time. How long is it going to take? I give it until the second week of December to find out.